Welcome to the Bret Boone podcast. I'm your host, Bret Boone. And today I'm joined by one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. He's a friend of the podcast, and he's fresh off his yearly trip to Canton, Ohio. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Hall of Famer Warren Moon. Warren, thanks for coming on the program.
Yeah, it's great to be on again, Brett. How you doing?
Good. Got to see a couple weeks ago Mike Tice's golf event that's become kind of an annual thing. Funny, Warren, how I got involved in that. I got a phone call from Mike Tice. And you know how you get phone call, you get the block number. You never answer the number, right?
Right.
For whatever reason, this particular day, I answered this phone call. I said, hello. He said, Brett. I said, yeah. He goes, this is Mike Tice. I said, okay. And he goes on and on. Next thing I know, I got off the phone. I had committed to a charity event in Seattle.
Mike is very convincing.
I had no idea how I did it. And I tell him that to this day. I love him now. And I've done it for 4 years. But I said, Tyson, I don't know how I'm even here. I should have never answered that phone call. And there's just those phone calls you get off and you go, I don't know how that happened. But the guy on the other line, I really liked him. For some reason, I've never met him before. And I felt like I'd known him for 30 years when I got off the phone, and it was the first phone call. Anyway, he does a great job up there.
I thought you guys had a history, maybe because he was here in Seattle and you played here in Seattle as well. And, he coached in Minnesota. I don't know, maybe I thought you guys had crossed paths somewhere along the way.
Never.
There.
he convinced me that we had, though. Huh?
You just picked up a random call. Huh? There it was.
Unbelievable. And I never do that. Something made me do it that particular day. Anyway, good to have you on. You just got back from Canton. Just tell the audience, I've never been to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I've been to the baseball a few times. Just tell the guys listening out there, listening to the Bret Boone podcast, what that week consists of for you, for the Hall of Famers.
Yeah, it's a pretty intense week. It starts not the beginning of the week, but it starts on Wednesday, and we have the Board of Trustees dinner. I'm on the Board of Trustees, but all the Hall of Famers who are in town early that week. A lot of guys come in early to play golf because there's some great golf courses around there. Firestone, where they play, some of the PGA events and that. So a lot of guys come in early just to play golf and get ready for the festivities. But they start out with the Board of Trustees dinner. The next day we have a lot of health screenings and things like that for guys who want to find out about their physical and their mental health. So they have doctors that come in and give you all types of exams, take blood, the whole bit. And then you have the game that night. The Hall of Fame game is that evening, so we all attend that. We have a toast before we go to the game. We go in the bust room where all the busts of all the Hall of Famers are in there, and we have champagne and we give toast, and you hear guys giving testimonials. It's a pretty emotional evening, which I love. And then we go to the game right after that. The next day is a really full day. That's Friday. We have a meeting that morning, and the Hall of Fame kind of gets us up to date on everything that's been going on with the Hall. If the guys have any questions about anything going on, those are answered in that meeting. Then we walk down the street as a group from our hotel down to this area they call Centennial Plaza that they created a few years ago, and it has the name of every professional football player that's ever played football in that plaza on the walls. It's really pretty cool, and that's where we take our group picture for that year's Hall of Fame induction class. And then we walk back to the hotel, and then we go into the lobby into the main ballroom. And we have what's called the Ray Nitschke luncheon. And it's a luncheon that's just for Hall of Famers. I happen to be able to host that luncheon now. It's quite an honor to be able to host that luncheon. And again, we have lunch. We give out pendants to guys who are going through their decade classes or their, every 5-year classes. We give pendants to those guys who are there. You have guys, again, get up in that meeting and talk about what the Hall of Fame and what football has meant to them in their life. Again, it gets pretty emotional in there. Guys are talking about all types of things going on in their lives, whether they're having health problems, whether they're having mental health problems, all types of things come out in that meeting. And but it's a meeting that only that information stays in there. And then that evening, we have what they call the Gold Jacket Dinner, and that's the dinner right before we go over to the Civic Plaza where they're going to give out the jackets to the new class, and we're all introduced that night, and then the new class is introduced that evening in front of a huge crowd. And then the next day on Saturday is the induction, and that starts around noon. This year was delayed a little bit because we had some rain in the forecast, so they delayed it about an hour and a half because of some thunderstorms. But all the induction and the speech that you see on TV by all the guys, that's a pretty special day, because that's when the guys, get up and kind of thank everybody and their families and everybody that's played a part and a role in their career. And then after that's over that night, all those new inductees have their parties at various places around Canton. So it's a pretty packed weekend. And then on Sunday this year, they had Carrie Underwood in concert on Sunday night, and I went to that and then left Monday. So it's a full 5 days of stuff every day. And I didn't list everything that I did because I'm on the board, so I had some other meetings and things involved. But yeah, it's a pretty involved, intense meeting of all these guys. But it's a great weekend. It's one of the fun weekends of the year.
Yeah, it sounds like it, and with all the activities you got to go to, it sounds like it could be but when you get to get together with that group, the guys that have got those jackets, it's an exclusive group. You were inducted in 2006. It's probably something you really look forward to going to every year.
Yeah, I haven't missed a year since I was inducted like 18 years ago, and myself and Troy Aikman and Harry Carson, we only have the three of us left from our class. John Madden passed away, Rayfield Wright passed away, and so did Reggie White. He passed away before he was even inducted. But we vowed that we would come back every year, and we've kind of stuck to that. So it's a special weekend, and it's something that I think guys relish. We had about 130 guys back this year. I think there's only about 200 guys that are living, and a lot of those guys, some of them aren't able to travel because of their age or health reasons or whatever like that. So, and then we also had about 52 widows who came back from guys that have passed away. So a lot of people came back for that. And like I said, it's one of the great weekends of the year for me, and one of the great weekends of the year for a lot of the guys.
I've been on a lot of teams. You've been on a lot of teams. You've been on more teams than I have. But kind of on the field, there's a pecking order. There's, in football, there's the star quarterback, and then, he's kind of important. Baseball, it depends who you are. But, there's the rookie, there's the utility player, there's the star on the team. So there's always a pecking order. Is there a pecking order at that Canton week? Like, is there guys that have been there so long and that everybody kind of looks to like, wow, he's still, he's probably getting older, but he's just a little, and then one day maybe you'll be that guy years from now where, man, Warren Moon, you should have seen him, back to these young kids. Is there a pecking order at the Hall of Fame?
Well, I think there's definitely guys, older guys that younger guys look up to. Like for myself, it's the quarterbacks. When I see a Roger Staubach there, or when I see a Joe Namath there, or Terry Bradshaw, those guys really mean something to me because I watched all those guys growing up when I was a young kid, and wished or dreamed of being in their shoes one day. So yeah, I'm sure there's pecking orders for all the different positions of guys who looked up to guys that played before them, and they tried to emulate their careers behind them. But it seems like when we get together, everybody's the same. There's no egos. That's one of the things we say: leave your ego at the door, because we are all on this team together. Doesn't matter how many times it took you to get here, whether you're a first ballot guy or it took you 15 years to get in here. We're all in here, and we're all on the same team. And we have a motto that this is a team you can't be cut from, you can't be waived from it, you can't even die on this team. You're here forever. So that's something that sticks in everybody's mind.
Pretty cool. I was thinking about this. For Warren Moon, if not for the Hall of Fame, is there anyone in your life, relationship buddy, that probably wouldn't have been your friend if it weren't for you guys coming together as two Hall of Famers?
Is there anybody in my life that?
No. Let's say if it weren't for the Hall of Fame. So if you weren't inducted and you
Yeah.
have to come every week, is there anybody that's really important in your life that's become close to you that wouldn't have happened if you weren't a Hall of Famer?
Wow, there's lots of people,
that you would have never met. You see what I'm saying? That have become really close to you.
Yeah, there's a few Hall of Famers that have become really close to me that I've gotten close to since I've been in there, but I probably wouldn't have met those people if I wasn't a Hall of Famer. So yeah, I'd have to say that there's a lot of great relationships that are cultivated from this, and you meet so many different people around the country because when you become a Hall of Famer, now your profile goes up and you're in demand a lot of different places, and you end up meeting a lot of great people around this country and around the world, because of that title you have on your name now.
First year you got in, for you, it was 2006. You've got the speech. You've got, like you said, they have their parties for the incoming class. You got tickets for family coordinating. And probably the biggest thing was writing your speech. Probably the biggest speech of your life. Now you've been there for a while. So when you go, how is it different for you now coming back? Is it stress-free? Is it more, I'm just going to enjoy? What are the perks of being a Hall of Famer? In Canton.
There's no question the year after you've been inducted, it's a much less stressed weekend because you don't have to worry about that speech. Planning this thing is like planning a wedding and a family reunion at the same time because you want to include everybody that's kind of played a part in your life growing up to get you to that point. Because when you become a Hall of Famer, you don't do it by yourself. And it starts as far back as, playing Pop Warner football. I had coaches and I had some of my former teammates from my Pop Warner teams at my induction ceremony. I had guys from my high school. I had guys from college. I had coaches from all those different eras. So then all the family members, and that's the main thing you don't want to do is forget anybody. You don't want to forget anybody in your speech, even though you can't name every name. You want to at least be able to talk about those groups of people. And it's quite the presentation. I actually had to hire somebody, and most guys do hire a party planner or whatever to put the whole thing together for you. So it's a lot of work. It starts almost at the time you're inducted. At Super Bowl in February, it starts like right after that, and work goes all the way up until now, until August, to get that thing done. As far as coming into town, doing site visits, the whole thing, the whole bit that goes along with it. But it's a lot of fun, and you want to be able to include everybody that's been involved in your life because, like I said, you don't make that by yourself.
Getting to this year's inductees, Dwight Freeney, Devin Hester, Patrick Willis, Julius. I want to get them all. Julius Pepper, Andre Johnson. But there were two that stood out to me, and I just want to ask you. You were there. The Steve McMichael induction,
yeah,
and the Randy Gradishar.
Yes.
What was it like for you watching those guys? Steve with a current health condition, and Randy had to wait so long. Is it extra special to see something like that? And I don't know, just describe the moments for those two in particular.
Yeah, for Steve McMichael, I played against him, and this was his 25th year before he got in. He's laid up now with ALS and, pretty much incapacitated. He can't walk, he can't talk, I don't think. So his wife was his representative there in Canton. What they actually did on the Saturday of the induction, they flew his wife and a number of his teammates that are in the Hall of Fame, Richard Dent, Jimbo Colbert, Mike Singletary, and a couple others, back to Chicago, and they were with him, by his bedside with his wife and his sister. and they pretty much gave him his jacket that day. They showed him his bust that day, just like if he were on stage. So the Hall of Fame did a great job, and we're very sensitive about the fact that he wasn't going to be able to be there, but they still wanted to include him in everything that was going on. I thought it was a pretty good touch. They did all of that on a big screen video in front of the whole audience at the Hall of Fame, so everybody got a chance to witness that. And then for Randy Gradishar, when I watched his highlights, because I was a big fan of his and the Orange Crush defense back in the day when they were playing, and in my mind, I'm going, I don't know why it took him so long to get in here because of the way he played. I mean, this guy has the second most tackles in the history of professional football, only behind Ray Lewis. And you got to remember that he only played in 14-game seasons where, Ray was playing in 16-game seasons. So this guy was all over the field making tackles. He had 20 interceptions as a linebacker, and you're talking about an era where they didn't throw the ball as much as they do now. So for him to have 20 interceptions and over 2,000 tackles is just amazing. And for him to wait this long, I don't know what the holdup was, but he definitely deserved to be there, and I'm glad he did. And I'm always happy for guys like that sometimes maybe get frustrated with the whole process and maybe want to give up on it. But then all of a sudden, when they finally do get that call or that knock on the door, all those feelings go away, and now all of a sudden they're a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, that really is cool. And on the baseball side of things, there's a veterans committee for the guys that go through the regular process, and it's right. The 10 years is up. To see it years later, kind of maybe got people getting together and decide. Was there someone that was missed by the current writers? The two programs, NFL, Major League Baseball, they have two different ways of selecting them. It's very interesting.
And that's what these guys were too. They were veteran committee guys.
Yeah. And it's cool to see maybe to right a wrong. That was somebody that was not caught to see. It's got to be pretty gratifying at the end. All right. Get to modern day. Football is changing. Seems like it changes all the time. We've had a ton of kind of shake up in Major League Baseball as with the new protocol, new rules, how guys like me, I don't like new stuff, but actually in the long run, I've ended up liking some of the new rules.
Yeah. I like the pitch clock.
Yeah. I don't know, but 2 years ago, Warren, if you'd have told me there's going to be a pitch clock, no, you son of a bitch. We don't have a clock in baseball. We're the last sport. We don't work on a clock. No. I need my time. But I'll tell you what, being on this side of the ledger and doing this and having to answer and watch, I love knowing that I can set my timer about 2 hours and 35 minutes. That game's going to be over. I think what they did in baseball recently with, like you said, the pitch clock is just encourage you to speed up and to prove to yourself that, again, can be played in a swift manner. And 40 years ago, that's how games were played. There wasn't a lot of this and a lot of that, stepping out and the pitcher taking 30, 40 seconds in between pitches. And so I think it's been a good thing. Football is changing this year. The kickoff rule. Are you well familiar with the new rule?
Yes, I am.
All right. I want to hear Warren Moon's take on what do you think? I'm just waiting to see it with my own eyes. I probably don't understand it like you do. I got briefed on it. I have an idea what's going to happen. Give me your take.
Well, I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to make it a safer play, but also keep that play involved in football and not take it out. Because, the kickoff is what starts off every game. It starts off, the change of possession for different teams after a score. And I don't think they want to take that out because it can be one of the most exciting plays in the game. And we saw Devin Hester go in the Hall of Fame this year. He was the first ever kick returner to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. And he had something like 20 kick returns for touchdowns. So they don't want to take that out of the game because it's an exciting part, but they also want to make it safer because you got these guys running downfield, from the 35-yard line, 60 yards on a full speed, and these collisions that happen when they finally meet up with a player. A lot of the concussions and different things like that and head injuries come from those plays. So what they've tried to do is make the two sides a little bit closer together, where once they start running down the field, the collisions aren't going to be as violent, but you still have the fact that you have a kickoff involved. and they want to encourage more kickoffs, because what they did is they moved the kickoff back a few years ago to the 35-yard line. Now, I mean, they moved it up, to the 40-yard line. Now, all of a sudden, all the kicks were going in the end zone, and there wasn't that many kicks being returned because, again, they were trying to make the game safer, but you still had those collisions going on. So what they've done is they want to have more returns but less collisions. So I think they've accomplished that. We're going to see how it works this season, and see if we can get more returns involved and not have as many injuries on those returns as we've had in the past.
We're talking about baseball. There's been less change in baseball. It seems like NFL is changing on a yearly basis, their rules. In your eyes, all the changes over the years since you've been retired, is the NFL getting better for it?
Yeah, I think so, Britt. I don't think the game is as physical as it used to be, which that bothers me some, but I understand why, because of the injuries. I think what they've been trying to do, and most of the rule changes you've seen over the last 10 years have been based off of safety issues. Trying to take the helmet out of the game, trying to make less practice time where you have contact, making sure the big hits aren't happening in the secondary by safeties on open receivers that are in vulnerable positions. Same thing with the quarterback. They're really trying to protect the quarterback more because he's in a vulnerable position pretty much every time he throws the football, and his body's wide open. And you've seen guys hit the quarterback like myself and drive them to the turf, and injuries happen like that. So they're trying to take those things out of the game. Then a lot of the changes that have happened in the game are to make the game safer for the players and cut down on injuries. I don't know if you've been aware or seeing the padded helmets that they have that they wear in practice now. Again, just to make sure that there's less wear and tear and repetitive head injuries or head trauma. All those different things are just to make sure that the game is safer for the players, and that's something that the Players Association has been advocating for over the last decade or so, is to make the game safer. Even with the turf that they play on now, they want to make sure that they got rid of AstroTurf and things like that, and now they have this field turf that they think is a lot safer to play on, and they're trying to get as much as they can back to grass fields as they can. So a lot of different things in the game have come because of safety reasons.
Oh man, you're bringing back some memory of that real AstroTurf.
Oh my goodness!
Played in Pittsburgh or Cincinnati or Philly. Well, I couldn't imagine for me, especially when I was young, going to the AstroTurf feeling, it was a lot of fun, Warren. I mean, it was like the game was a lot faster, but it was a step and a dive for me everywhere. That old Kingdome that I played when I was a rookie.
Did you play in the Astrodome?
Played in the Astrodome. Now, as a young,
the worst turf ever.
The worst. But as a young baseball player with young legs, and I was fresh, I loved it because it was a fast-paced game, but it was a step and a dive. I didn't have any aches and pains yet, and I loved playing on the AstroTurf. Now, as I got a little bit older and my knees started to hurt a little bit, starting to bug me, but I used to think about you guys, because that was back in the day where there's a lot of venues was baseball/football. So we were both playing there. You guys would screw it up at the grass fields. Anaheim, I'd come back, I go out to second base, and I've got the 30-yard line in front of me, chalk running through. That's back in the day. But I used to think about you guys going, man, they're getting the crap beat out of them. Like you said, tackled and driven into the turf on this stuff. That's got to hurt. So
there wasn't a lot of padding under that turf either. And
oh man,
my body still has all the burn marks on my arms and on my legs from that stuff. That was some treacherous stuff. I'm glad they finally did away with it.
I want to ask you this. I was asked this a while ago, and they were asking me, "Are you as tough? Are you as tough as your dad?" And I consider myself pretty tough guy, and I thought about I want to hear. I'm not going to tell you what I answer. I want to hear your question. Are the players today as tough as the players were in your generation?
I don't think so. I really don't. And a lot of it starts with again, these rule changes where players go to training camp now. We used to have 2 a day. Some coaches would practice you three times a day. they don't practice but once a day now, and then they have a walkthrough. So they're not out there going through that mental and physical wear and tear that we went through just to get ready for the season. I don't think their bodies are calloused to get themselves ready for the year. You look at the way training camp and the way preseason is. None of the starters are playing anymore. They'll go through a whole preseason game, and like the other night, none of the starters for Chicago, none of the starters for the Texans played in that game. And I'm seeing a lot of players are being sat down this week. I don't think Aaron Rodgers is going to play, and different guys. How do you get yourself ready to play a season if you're not playing in at least some of the preseason games? Everybody's worried about players getting hurt, but every day you see players getting hurt in practice all the time. You can't guard against that. In football, injuries are going to happen. So, yeah, if you don't want to play somebody for the whole season, okay, he's not going to get hurt. But if he walks on the field, whether it's in a game or in a practice or whatever, there's a chance he could get hurt out there. So let the guy go out there and get himself prepared and ready to play for the season. You don't have to play him a half, or you don't have to play him, 3/4 of a ball game, but you also have to get him ready to play, getting ready for a season. Because if you don't play a guy in the 3 preseason games you have, then all of a sudden week 1, you put all your starters out there and you're going to ask them to play 65, 70 plays in a ball game. They haven't played any in a real game the whole preseason. Guys are going to get hurt because their bodies aren't ready for that. They're going to get fatigued, and when you get fatigued, you get hurt. So I just don't think guys are as tough, because coaches and general managers and that are so worried about players getting hurt that they're babying them too much. And you'll see this season, in the first 2 to 3 weeks of the year, there's going to be a lot of guys go down with injuries because their bodies are not prepared to play a whole football game because they haven't played it all during the preseason.
Yeah, makes sense. On the baseball side, we start off real slow in spring training, always have. Right. Getting at bat. Now I'm getting 2 at bats by the end of spring training. I'm playing 7, 8 innings, getting ready, because now the bell's about to ring.
Right.
The new rules in football, a lot to protect the offense. Seems like a lot favor the offense, and it's really, I look at the NFL and I look at it from a layman's perspective. But I think, man, it's tough for that defense to keep up with the rules. How would Warren Moon do in today's situation as a quarterback?
I've talked to some of the other guys that played in my era, like Dan Marino and John Elway and guys like that. And yeah, we just think it would be very scary if we were playing in today's game with these rules. The way you're protected, that's the thing that I love the most, is how these guys are protected back there. I remember when Tom Brady, when a guy rolled up on his knee, I think it was like 10 years into his career, and tore his knee up. They created the Brady rule. Now you can't hit a quarterback in his knees or below, or you get penalized for it. Again, I was talking about, you can't drive a quarterback to the ground anymore. You have to somehow hit the quarterback and dive off of him before he hits the ground, so you don't fall on top of him. So, yeah, I would love to play just knowing the fact that I'm going to get protected so much better than I did when I did play the game. But yeah, the rules are made for the quarterback. They're made for the wide receiver. And that's why you see the wide receiver and quarterback, the dominant players in today's game, and the running back position has been diminished, especially from a pay salary wise, because of the way the quarterbacks and receivers are playing pitch and catch with the football. Because you can't hit the receivers in the secondary anymore either with any big hits. So you can't have your hands on them after 5 yards down the field. So there's so many things that are in the favor of the offense that I would have loved to have played in these types of rule changes. And like I said, the most important thing is having your body protected.
Recently, I had Rex Ryan on, the Ryan brothers. They cracked me up. Rob's been at Mike Tyson's tournament. But anyway, they got me playing. I got a phone call before the baseball season. They said, Boone, will you play fantasy baseball with us? I've never played fantasy baseball. I ended up playing. I get crushed. I'm like 2-16. I don't know if I'm not paying attention enough. I don't know what I'm doing. We're going to play fantasy football this year, and I have no clue what I'm doing. But I'm going to try to learn and pay a little better attention.
Yeah, it is a lot.
Get educated a little bit. My question to you is, okay, If I've got an all-time fantasy football team, not current, it could be current. I can pick anyone I want. I'm going to take, and let's just say I'm taking Warren Moon as my quarterback. Now, I'm going to ask Warren Moon, you can have 2 wide receivers, a tight end, and 2 running backs from the history of the game, including current. Who you taking?
2 wide receivers. I'm going to take Randy Moss and Jerry Rice.
Okay.
At tight end, I'm going to take Tony Gonzalez. And you said 2 running backs?
Yeah, 2 running backs.
I'm going to go with Barry Sanders Golly, there's a lot of those, man. I'm gonna look for a little versatility. I'm gonna go with Marcus Allen.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
He's a touchdown maker, man. That guy knew the end zone. He knew how to get in the end zone. That's what I love.
Very cool. Very cool.
There's a lot of other ones I could have went for, LaDainian Tomlinson or Walter Payton. I mean, there's so many great running backs. Those two are two I had great respect for when I played.
Interesting. Getting ready for the season. I just want a couple questions, and I'll let you get out of here. But your opinion, 2024, can anyone stop the Chiefs?
I think the Chiefs can stop the Chiefs. And here's my thinking is they've had 2 long seasons the last 2 years. Going all the way to the Super Bowl, you're playing, an extra 2-3 games an extra at least 3 games. I don't know if they ever played 4, but an extra 3 games. And then, their off season is a little bit shorter because all the hoopla of winning a Super Bowl and that. And then you go into another season. And so they've had 2 long years so far. And you wonder, when is that going to catch up with them as far as maybe injuries are concerned? And if they don't have a lot of injuries, if they can stay pretty injury-free, not injury-free, but no major injuries, say to Patrick Mahomes or some of their key players, they have a chance to three-peat this thing. But I think that's going to be the biggest challenge, to see if they can stay healthy because of how long their last couple of seasons have been to get to those Super Bowls.
Can San Fran get back to the Super Bowl? Are they good enough?
They're another team that's been pretty healthy. You wonder if that's going to catch up with them as well. And then they've got a lot of drama going on in their organization right now with the Ayuk situation, the wide receiver. They've got their big tackle. Leonard Williams is not in camp, and he's a difference maker. He might be elected the best player overall in the National Football League for any position. Because that's how valuable he is. So they don't have him in camp right now. They don't have Ayuk in camp right now. And then that becomes a distraction because the players are being asked about it all day, every day. They're being asked about the Super Bowl loss from last year. So if they can somehow quiet all that noise and get all those guys back in camp, they have enough talent, no question, to get back to it again. But those questions have to be answered. Those 2 key players, first of all, and then just quieting some of the noise that's in their camp.
Last one. I know as players, as a quarterback, as a second base, I pay special attention usually to the middle infielders, the young guys coming up. They catch my eye. I want to see how their footwork is and compare it to generation. I'm sure you pay special attention to quarterbacks.
Yep.
Who's out of all these young quarterbacks, who are some of your favorite guys? Or if not, who's your guy of this young quarterback crop in the NFL?
So this draft class that just came in?
No, could be anybody. Just the young quarterbacks in the game today.
The game is in really good shape at the quarterback position. I mean, you look at Lamar Jackson's 26 years old, and he's already won 2 MVPs. So he's got a tremendous future still ahead of him. I think his best football as a passing quarterback is still ahead of him. So he's somebody that that I love watching. Definitely Patrick Mahomes. Again, he's a guy that's 26, 27 years old. I love Justin Herbert, but I think right now he's got a foot injury, so he's not going to be out there for a while. We have to see how that works for him. But I think he's finally got a head coach that's going to get his team on the right track, and Jim Harbaugh with the Chargers. And I think you'll see his best football come out if he gets back on the field and healthy, because I just don't think he had the right head coach that put him in a lot of tough situations. But he's somebody that's very impressive as far as his arm, as far as his legs. Joe Burrow's a guy that I really like as well, because of what he's already done in a short period of time. But again, 2 out of his first 4 years he's been hurt, so he's got to stay healthy. So that's the key in this game. You got to stay healthy and be available. That's the most important thing you can do for your team as a quarterback, especially the way the rules are geared towards a quarterback having to have success, and you having to have a really good quarterback in order to be good in this league. You've got to be available to your football team. So those are some of the guys that I really like looking at. There's a lot of others, but Trevor Lawrence, this is going to be a big year for him. He just signed a huge contract, and he's coming off of a so-so year, but they still went ahead and paid him for the future. So we'll have to see what he does coming into this season. He was a number 1 overall pick when he came out, a lot of expectations. So let's see if he can live up to those expectations, but he's definitely talented enough.
Got it. Well, Warren, it's always a pleasure having you on. I appreciate you taking the time today. And a lot of great stuff. For those of you watching the Bret Boone podcast now on our own YouTube channel, check it out. For those listening on the Odyssey app or wherever you download your podcasts, until next time, keep it here. Thanks, Warren.